So before I set myself up for a massive fail, this is not a review of Caladan.
What did you say?
I know. Now look, all I can ask is for a little more time and patience before we knock that one out, and I give you my word, your patience will be rewarded. Anyway, while this video is not about Caladan, the good news is they are indeed the co-star of today's show. That's right, in today's video, we're going to answer the question, what's one of the best sounding integrated amps that I have ever spent time with, and what's my favorite amp laying around to pair with Caladan? And with a warm welcome back to New Record Day, that is exactly what we're going to find out. System synergy, or pairing the right speaker with the right amplifier connected to the right preamp or DAC, is indeed a thing. While I do think this notion can quickly get out of hand, I do believe that to an extent it's possible to move the needle in the right or wrong direction when buying your next amplifier, and would you know it, this particular amp, the Electrocompaniet ECI-80D, seems to move the needle in the right direction every single time. Now, when I first got a good look at the ECI-80D and taking the price of admission into account, I was, for lack of a better term, underwhelmed. I mean, the front panel looks somewhat fancy with its plexiglass faceplate, but the chassis, the back panel, and all of the inputs and outputs and speaker terminals, I don't know. It just kind of looks cheesy. Then I turned the amplifier on, sat back in my fancy pants listening chair, pressed play on my Qobuz playlist, and thought to myself, what the heck is going on here? With the Caladans on deck, the depth and width I was hearing in the stage was as immersive as I could ever imagine. Little nuggets of details and information in the time domain was easy to trace, and my goodness me, the grip on bass had me convinced that this amp has been hitting the juice pretty dang hard. Everything in the midband sounded clean and precise, and yet never thin or sterile, while the vocals sounded holographic and three-dimensional. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves and this starts to sound like a sales pitch, let me back up and at least cover the basics. Taking a look at the ECI-80D from the front, you are greeted with a simple power button in the middle with branding and logo at the top. To the right of the amp, you will find 4 buttons, with the top and bottom covering volume control and left and right handling input selections. To the far left, there is an LCD display which confirms your input and displays volume information as well. The front panel looks nice. It's made out of thick plexiglass, and all of the buttons on the front feel sturdy and respond well to the touch. In terms of build quality and what you get, I have little to complain about when it comes to the amp, minus, I don't know, the somewhat ordinary looking chassis and back panel connections. The amplifier does come with a remote control, and this will be the only time in this review where I get a little cranky. The first one, which came with the amp, didn't work at all. I tried reinstalling the batteries with fresh ones. I stood on one leg. I tried doing some backflips, and I asked pretty please, and I got nothing. I reached out to the distributor, and in a quick hurry, I got a replacement which worked for about 1 week. I don't get it. Maybe just bad luck, but having been around this stuff for as long as I have, and never once having one issue with a remote, this was just sort of weird. Either way, I have little to no confidence in this little plastic thing, and I can only hope that my bad luck is exactly that, mine and mine alone. Taking a look at the back of the unit, starting from the left, you will find a built-in phono section for moving magnet and high output moving cartridges loaded at 47K ohms. Beyond this bank, you will find a headphone section with both 3.5 and 6.3 millimeter jacks. Beyond this, the 80D offers a pair of single-ended outputs for connecting to a larger power amp or using subwoofers. The next 3 banks cover single-ended analog inputs, coaxial inputs, and optical inputs. Past this, you will find a USB port for service only in and out trigger ports, 5-way binding posts, and last, a rocker switch for mains and IEC inlet for power. As far as need-to-know specs, the ECI-80D is a Class AB amplifier, which is rated at 80 watts into 8 ohms and 150 watts into 4 ohms. Noise floor is less than 130 decibels, and the damping factor is greater than 300 into 8 ohms. For modern audiophiles, the amp also includes built-in Bluetooth connections and also supports Bluetooth 5.0, A2DP, SBC, AAC, and aptX HD. As for its digital connections, you can expect 192 kilohertz with 24-bit resolution and 44.1 with 16-bit resolution in both optical and coaxial inputs. So I've had the 80D now for about 9 months, and while I rarely have gear that long, I am glad that I've been able to spend so much time with this amplifier. Except for Maria and the M4s, which we just recently reviewed, every single review that you have watched over the last 8 to 9 months, I can assure you, the amp that I used for each of them was the ECI-80D. While I've had more expensive amps at my disposal and many more amps that do some nice things, it's the ECI-80D that I couldn't get enough of. For 99% of my time listening to this amp, I use my trusty MADAC, running into the analog inputs, and that pairing is part of the puzzle of what I'll be talking about today. I did, however, use the Bluetooth connections quite a few times, and to be honest with you, while there was a hit in performance, it wasn't so bad that I couldn't see myself using that from time to time for casual listening. The connection is strong, it never dropped out during the time that I used it, and not once did I notice anything that sounded weird or downright bad. The hit to performance only refers to some details being lost, and even still, I'm telling you, it's really not as bad as you might think. And yes, because you guys are absolutely worth the effort, let's just compare the Bluetooth streaming to my Enuos Zenith and my MADAC. So here we go. I mean, it still sounds good, like good, which is crazy. It's just Bluetooth streaming, for crying out loud. Now, I have also used the headphone section of this amplifier a number of times, and while I don't know what kind of hoodoo voodoo they have sprinkled onto this amplifier, it sounds absolutely stunning. I hate that the jacks are on the back of the amplifier, but gosh, it sounds so good. Even against dedicated headphone amplifiers, there was something about this particular amp that just felt good while I was listening. To my ears, it perfectly matched all of the great traits of this amplifier when transitioning to a pair of quality cans. And you know what? Isn't that the way that it's supposed to be? Last, the same thing applies to the built-in phono section, where all too often we see a typical moving magnet thrown in just to keep the hipsters happy. And look, while I've certainly heard better standalone phono amplifiers than what we have here, the moving magnet section of this amp stood out as one of the better options that I've spent time with when compared with other integrated amps. If you remember, I reviewed the newer RN line of the Yamaha amps, and compared to the built-in phono sections of those, this amp sounds way better to my ears. It's dynamic, it's punchy, and again, meshing with the incredible stage of this amplifier, I was happy with this built-in phono section, and I feel very confident that newcomers to spinning the black circle will be over the moon with its performance. Dating back to October 25th, when I published the video about Caladan, Clayton, Mark, and I spent several days swapping out amps and putting these speakers through the ringer. In the end, we all agreed that this amp, the ECI-80D, for all of the reasons that I am about to describe, was the overall winner when paired with Caladan. Fast forward to when I finally got my grubby hands on a production sample of Caladan, this pairing took no time at all to pick up right where they left off. I know a lot of you guys have been anxiously waiting for your pair of Caladans to arrive. And I know it has taken much longer than anyone expected, including Clayton. For this, knowing that I lit that fire, I do feel a sense of responsibility, even though I have nothing to do with the production of that speaker. I am just hoping that by now things are moving in the right direction and the Caladans are finally making their journey into your listening rooms. The last time that I spoke with Clayton, he said there were a number of challenges with PayPal processing and baffle production issues, and at the same time, he had a clear plan and path moving forward to fix those hurdles and to get this choo-choo train on the right tracks. Anyhow, I know that I created a ton of hype, and the only thing that I can say is this. That hype wasn't made up, and it still isn't. I love these speakers, and I cannot wait for everyone who ordered a pair to hear what I've already been rambling about and what I'll continue rambling about in this video and many more to come. The ECI-80D's top end sounds incredibly detailed and focuses its sonic lens on time domain information, which is something that I'm always listening for. Decay structure, meaning when a cymbal, bell, or anything else is struck, typically has a trail of information that decays after the fundamental hit. This structure, when intact, can lend itself to a more immersive and believable performance. While that tiny detail on its own might not seem like much, when that same structure exists throughout the entire performance from top to bottom, well, welcome to the town of Goosebumps, my good friends. Trust me, you're gonna like it here. Later in the sound clips, I believe you will clearly hear what I'm rambling about. After comparing the Caladans with a long list of speakers that I've recently been recording, only the Bullies sound a little closer to the reference recording. From what I can tell, the Caladans have graciously accepted the silver medal in the resolution department. In any event, with the ECI-80D running the show, nothing on the top end seems to be hidden or lost. When the cymbal is struck, you get the fundamental crack, and afterward, you can easily track the decay of the hit. When this is happening in complex passages with multiple hits, it leads to audiophile bliss for those who have never had the pleasure of hearing this done so well, as a box of snakes hissing is normally the result. Now, I will mention that with all things, including the wonderful ECI-80D, nothing is perfect. Sadly, there does seem to be a point with higher volumes where the top end sometimes sounds a little forward or pokey. I typically listen around 85 decibels as my days of destroying my eardrums are coming to an end, and for folks who want to hear perfect top end at 90 decibels or more, keep my commentary in mind. The mid-range performance of the 80D is a straight line, and before you start thinking, who cares, that's boring, please entertain me when I make the claim that's about as far away from the truth as it gets. First and foremost, if your amplifier isn't drawing a straight line throughout its entire bandwidth, I hate to break it to you, but your amplifier is broken. Second of all, not every straight line sounds the same. That's right. With an open and articulate top end combined with punchy and powerful bass, the mid-range of the 80D has a chance to tell us the truth. That is to say, when the music calls for something exciting, that's what you get. When the music calls for something relaxed, that's what you get. From a tonal perspective, regardless of the speaker that I have plugged into the 80D, the amplifier always moves out of the way and lets me pick apart what the heck the speaker is doing. This is a major reason I kept using this amplifier for so long. In other words, the amp really became more of a tool for reviewing because I could always count on its sonic fingerprint every single time. Vocals in their presentation are also linear regardless of the singer's pitch, and only the top end of some female vocals might sound a little more airy or offer a touch more sparkle with the Electro's top end. This was never a negative attribute, and for me, of course, became one of the things that I loved about the amp, as I described in the Treble Impressions. In the lower and upper mid-range, I never heard anything that sounded lifted or cut, and every single artist that stepped up to the mic sounded clean, precise, and void of any distractions. Now, as I said, because I've trusted this amp as much as I have, it was with Caladan that I did indeed start picking up one aspect of the speaker that can be heard in the clips, partly because of the distance I'm recording the samples. There is one track with a female vocal and ukulele that we will listen to in just one moment. With Caladan, I hear a slight recess or dip that tugs on her voice. So, what the heck is going on here? I'm glad you asked, cowboy. Park your horse next to the fire and I'll explain it over a ribeye. Medium rare, of course. With Caladan, we have a two-way design, and those two 12-inch woofers cover everything in the bandwidth from 30 Hz all the way up to 1 kilohertz, which is where the tweeter is being crossed. So, the acoustic center, or where the tweeter and woofers are going to sum together, is way the heck down here in the middle of these two woofers, or about half the distance of Texas from the tweeter on top. This means, even with Caladan being crossed at 1K, it's gonna take a miracle for a perfect marriage of those woofers and tweeters to shake hands and get along. Now, Clayton was aware of this trade-off and decided that having a higher sensitivity and a little more punch and fewer crossover parts with a two-way design was the best way to deliver an open baffle speaker at this price point that he was aiming for. In that regard, I agree that he made the right decision based on the goals of his design. Either way, there is a small dip in the response of Caladan right around the crossover point, and we don't even need to look at a gated response to see it. Even from the recorded location, here it is. So long story short, because of how linear the presentation is of this amplifier, catching on to these things helped me understand what's going on, and it's something that I appreciated. Anyway, dust off the headphones and let's have a listen to what I'm talking about.
No hubiera pensado que yo me iba a enamorar, jamás no quería saber nada más, nunca más. No hubiera pensado que yo me iba a enamorar, jamás no quería saber nada más, nunca más.
Did you catch it? While it's not a world of difference and somewhat subtle, it just goes to show how important it is to understand and illustrate that every speaker, even Caladan, will have trade-offs. But hey, let's flip the coin and chat about the positive side of that trade-off, which of course is the punchiest bass Clayton Shaw has ever invoked out of a passive speaker. By now, I'm willing to bet that most of you fine folks have listening fatigue of how much I've mentioned the speed and texture and tone when it comes to open baffle bass, and for that I say,
well, I have a microphone and you don't.
So you will listen to every damn word I have to say!
Look, I love hearing deep, cinematic, heavy-handed bass with room pressure added to the experience just as much as the next Audiophile. I get it, I really do. It's fun, and every single time that I'm at the movies, I enjoy that larger-than-life bass experience. It's a lot of fun. But when it comes to critically listening to music, quick and articulate bass with loads of texture and nuanced details is indeed the blood in the water for this cowboy. While any amplifier should be able to provide this, and for the most part that has been my experience, but in the same breath, some do it better than others. Even more, when an amp has the ability to provide all that texture, detail, and resolution and bring the thunder as well, I got 3 words for you. Sign me up. One of the things that makes Caladan so compelling is, first of all, its value. What we have with this one-and-done open baffle offering is the complete package with nothing left to run out and buy, especially in a quick hurry, and that includes subwoofers. With 2 12-inch paper cone woofers, hitting the low 30s is no problem, and in my room, I've seen some musical content that can indeed dip its toe into the 20s, which is just plain ridiculous. Even more, the bass is clean, articulate, and has no overhang or room boom that distracts me from hearing all of the texture and tone in bass. When Clayton and Mark came out, there were 3 amps that stood out for different reasons. We had the LTA Z40 Plus, the Enlium Amp 23R, and of course, the ECI-80D. While each of these amplifiers did some things that we liked more than others, it was the ECI-80D that took the lead in how punchy and robust the bass sounded that fleshed out all of the details that we could ask for. One of the tracks that we used for the sound demo of the prototype pair was Fading Sun from the album Winter Songs, and a lot of you guys have already heard that from the original sound clip that we've already released. So yeah, there is this ridiculously low note heard from a drum in that song, and I am telling you, every single time we heard that hit in the sound shed, we all couldn't help but look at each other and grin. Heck, Mark wouldn't stop giggling, and I was worried that he finally lost it altogether. And look, this ECI-80D ain't some kind of one-note wonder either. Even when playing more complex bass passages, this amp has no issues with keeping up with fast transients and quick changes of dynamics. Double bass pedals in death metal? Sure. Oh, you want to spend some time with Danny Carey or Mike Portnoy? Not a problem, son. Plug the electro in and turn it up. You will have percussion as quick as you could ever ask for and more. Saving the best for last. It's the staging of this amplifier that I can't get enough of. It sounds deep, wide, and holographic. I don't know how it's happening, and every time I look at the back of this amplifier at what seems to be modest and cheesy parts, I laugh at myself. Yes, the ECI-80D has indeed taught me a lesson. Don't judge an amplifier by its rear end. One of my go-to artists for anything soundstage related is Petaraf Eglis, and obviously, just as cruddy of a job I have done in pronouncing Electrocompaniet, I am butchering this amazing artist's name. Either way, a must-hear track is off of his album, Blue Departure. The track name is The Missing Piece, and it features a load of percussive treats and incredible guitar work that will quickly help you determine just how high, deep, and wide your system can really reach. This track, which is the first track on my reference playlist, is the track that first blew my mind when hearing it with the ECI-80D, and still holds the trophy as one of the largest presentations that I've heard with any amplifier that I've had my hands on over the last 9 months. And look, while Missing Piece doesn't have any vocals, any track that you throw at the ECI-80D that does have vocals sounds incredible. And while I can't talk about this little project that's being refined as we speak, I will tell you that with these particular speakers plugged into this amplifier, the human voice in all things vocals has never sounded so real. Folks, I'm talking in-game vocals and will redefine how the human voice should sound in a hi-fi system. So yeah, consider that a little bit of a teaser and relax. It's gonna be a while before these are ready for the prime time. Either way, and getting to the point here, the sound staging and imaging capabilities of this amplifier is my favorite thing about the Electrocompaniet ECI-80D. All right, ladies and gentlemen, grab your cans and let's have some fun. In today's clips, we'll be listening to the ECI-80D and, of course, the Caladans. I'll be using my Ineos Zenith as my source, which is, of course, handing the goodies over to my Maydac. All the clips are recorded using my Earthworks QTC40s and Zoom F8N field recorder, and why not? Let's throw in some clips of these mystery speakers while we are at it. The first clip you will be listening to is the reference track, then the 80D with the Caladans, and last, the mystery speaker with, of course, the ECI-80D as well. So yeah, headphones on, enjoy the clips, and make sure you let us know what you hear down below in the comment section, and I'll see you guys in the final thoughts.
Engineer, where are you headed? Engineer, where are you headed? Engineer, where are you headed?
No hubiera pensado que yo me iba a enamorar, jamás no quería saber nada más, nunca más. No hubiera pensado que yo me iba a enamorar, jamás no quería saber nada más, nunca más. No hubiera pensado que yo me iba a enamorar, jamás no quería saber nada más, nunca más.
What else can I say, folks? For me, this amp is one of those pieces that makes it hard to hide my excitement. It really is more than just another amplifier among the crowd. It's a piece of equipment that I connected with. Not only did we get along, but from this day forward, I will remember that beauty being skin deep also applies to my assumptions about what the back panel of an amplifier is supposed to look like. Cheesy parts or not, typical connectors or not, boring and bland steel cage chassis or not, The Electrocompaniet ECI-80D is one of the best integrated amps that I have ever spent time with. It comes with an easy recommendation, especially if you are in the market to pair it with your brand new Caladans. And with that, I'll see you electro-loving audiophiles in the next video.